We're back. And what were we talking about? I don't know what we were talking about.
Let's see.
Your romance and what your dates were like.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I have a question about that. Did either of you ever date other people?
When I was at the University of Colorado, I and it's funny because my buddy that I told you I emailed with back there,
Oh yeah.
we were somehow or other we got on that, and he asked me her name, and I said, "Ah, damn if I know." So then I tried to look it up in my yearbook from Colorado, and I couldn't find. I didn't remember her sorority, so I had to email him and ask for the name of the sorority, and then I finally found it, and then looked at all the photos, and in my mind I knew exactly what she looked like,
Huh.
but there was no picture of anybody who looked like that.
Huh. That's funny. So maybe she was just a figment of your imagination?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a figment, but obviously her face was. I
Uh-huh.
guess maybe it's changed over the years.
So you two weren't really promised to each other at that point.
Well, your mother insists that our parents sent me away so that we would be separated.
Uh,
I have my doubts about that, but I don't like to tell your mother she's wrong.
Because she never is.
Usually she's right. But anyway, we had dated beforehand, and when I came back, we continued to see each other. I don't remember any of the details. I just remember, I guess all my buddies had girlfriends who were 85, so I wound up over there, and I knew Mom, and one thing led to another.
As it does. Why did you come back to Cal from Colorado?
And I really can't give you an honest answer on that either. Probably because I really didn't like being away. But I don't remember.
Do you remember your first kiss?
No.
No.
No. Well, that's okay.
But fortunately, there were many thereafter.
Yeah, I just saw one just yesterday. In school, did you belong to clubs or do sports?
I didn't do sports. I belonged to a club in high school, but I'll be darned if I remember which one.
Yeah.
Kind of a blur.
I went out for track for a couple of years, and I was worthless. And as far as clubs, I don't even remember. There were in those days a lot of clubs, but I don't remember being in any. I used to be a photographer, and I used to take pictures that got in the newspaper. We had I guess a weekly high school newspaper.
The Aegis, the weekly Aegis.
Oh, your mother is amazing. Anyway.
I have to go on a TV show.
I took, I remember taking basketball players and baseball games. And those, I was really into photography as a kid.
Right. Didn't you have a dark room at your house?
Yeah, my dad had a dark room built for me, and he bought me some, it was during the war, and the cameras were old cameras. I had a thing called a Speed Graphic and a Graflex. Graflex was a camera you looked down into, and it had individual negatives.
Right.
Anyway, and then the Speed Graphic was one like you see in all the movies of the old ones. It was this thing you held up, this big, it was a 4x5.
Negative.
And it had this flash gun, big, that had a bulb in it.
Right.
And of course, in those days, things were hard to come by. But anyway, I had that, and then I had a guy who taught me a lot about photography, Joe Sherman. And I have the best picture in the world of Aunt Audrey and Uncle Dave when they got married. But it was on my camera, and I was standing next to the guy who taught me. He actually took the picture I did. But I got credit for it. It was a great picture, which I still see around.
Huh. I've probably seen that, but didn't know that.
Yeah, there's two of them sitting. He's in his, at that time, he was not, I don't think he was a chief petty officer yet then. He was in a regular sailor's uniform. And they were in a little circular thing on the front porch of our house. They were sitting on it. It's a great shot.
Nice. Um, Tell me about getting married. How did you propose?
I believe
Or
I
was it-
proposed.
I'm sure you did. I was always slow.
Well, we had gone together, you know, for, at that point, I don't know, at least a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't, yeah, was I still in law school when I honestly, I just don't have a memory of it. I know I pinned you, which is an old thing we used to do in fraternities and sororities, which I guess is long gone. But anyway, I gave you the pin, which is sort of the first thing before a proposal.
Uh-huh.
And then we were very fortunate in those days, you know, although my parents during the Second World War, for the most part, and before, were stone broke. And my mother really had to do work, and couldn't be home. Anyway, where the hell was I going?
That you were lucky
Oh,
when you
I
wanted
was
to get
lucky.
married?
We were lucky that they supported us.
The first year we were married.
Well,
Oh.
more than the first year, until I graduated law school and then went to work at Giant. I had no income. I mean, I did not work.
Mhm. So you just did
Probably,
school?
I'm sure I worked in the summers, or I was in the Naval Reserve. I remember I had to go out. I remember one summer I was on a destroyer, the USS Shields, and went out to Vancouver on the destroyer, and then one year I worked on Treasure Island.
And we were married then.
Yeah, on Treasure Island.
Yeah.
Was I in the Shields too?
I don't
I don't remember.
think
Larry,
so.
Larry Thorne and I were in the Naval Reserve.
For how long were you in the Naval Reserves?
A year or two, I guess. I have an honorable discharge.
That's good.
Well, that's a whole story. When I was, you know, I eventually got, I had a deferment, which the draft board took to a presidential appeal, and they reversed my exemption.
Oh.
But by that time, we had a baby, namely Deborah Lynn, and that, you know, that saved me. Otherwise, I would have gone
Was
to
she
Korea.
born, or was it because I was pregnant? I don't
I
remember.
think she was born then.
Hmm.
Got a little worried though when I saw my A classification come in the mail. I didn't even know the thing was on appeal.
And you had the deferment because you were in school?
Actually, I got the deferment because I showed that we planned to get married. We had a notice in the Tribune, you know, of our forthcoming marriage,
Yes.
and the draft board, you know, was satisfied with that. That was the Korean conflict, not Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. You have friends that went to Korea?
I don't think we had anybody we knew who went to Korea.
No, I don't think so. Howard Sanger, I know, went to Korea, but we
Yeah,
didn't
but
know
we
him
didn't know
then.
him until we came down here.
Hmm. And so your wedding was
Gorgeous.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
Yes.
At
her
the-
parents went all out.
Uh-huh.
My parents were fortunate. My dad was an entrepreneur. He either was broke or he was worth a lot. When I was fortunate that his days of being broke were right before I was born. So I grew up, you know, not with a silver spoon, but I never lacked for anything that I reasonably wanted. And then when we decided to be married, my mother was so excited she could give a wedding. And so they went all out. We were married, when I think about it, at a place called the Women's Athletic Club, because,
Which is still there, I guess.
yes, I believe so.
On Lake Merritt.
Because my mother's cousin, Phyllis, had been married there, and my mother thought it was the most beautiful wedding she had ever seen. And that was all very lovely. What it didn't even realize at the time we were married is that it happened to be restricted to Jews. And I mean, I afterwards thought, how could my parents have done that? But anyway, at the time we were married, we were young and dumb and innocent. I
That was
didn't
in the
know
time they had one Jewish member.
Mhm.
And the only reason I think that she was still a member and the only Jew, and not one of these things where, you know, they have one Jew just to show that, you know, it was that when the club was started, there were Jewish women who were involved in starting it.
Mm.
But then it became restricted after that.
That was
Crazy.
Atlanta, right?
No. Oh, yeah, it was one of your aunts, but no, I don't think it was Annalena.
I think
I don't
so.
know. It could have been. But anyway, that's the reason that we did. But, you know, in my involvement in Jewish affairs afterwards, I was always a little embarrassed by that.
That you got married at,
Yeah.
at a place. Yeah.
But it was a great place and
It was a
beautiful wedding.
gorgeous wedding.
And I was so mad at your mother afterward because we had this wonderful, gorgeous dinner, and she was too excited to eat, and she made me buy her a dinner at the Mark Hopkins Hotel. No, it wasn't the Mark.
Yes, it was.
That's where you spent your wedding night, the
Yes.
Mark Hopkins?
Yeah. And
And he's
I
never forgiven me.
Yeah, I've never forgiven her for that.
63 years later, he's still forgiven.
Yeah,
But you weren't
we
cheap.
didn't have any money. It was expensive.
Where did you go on a honeymoon right away?
Yeah, next day.
To
My mother had at that time a Studebaker, but it didn't have air conditioning, because in those days they didn't. And we had to drive, we went to the Arrowhead Springs Hotel.
Oh, right.
Were we
But it was
just-
October. Was it that hot? Was it? Do you
Yeah.
remember being
August.
Oh, August. Why did I think
August
October?
2nd.
Of course,
That's
because your
my
birthday.
birthday.
That's
Yeah,
your
it
birthday.
was hot going down the
Oh
valley.
yeah, I
Your
bet.
mother
Oh my God.
did not do well with the heat. And,
Why we didn't go on the coast, I have
Yeah.
no idea, but we didn't.
So anyway, until we got to our air-conditioned hotel room in Bakersfield.
Mhm.
We drove from San Francisco to Bakersfield,
Oh,
which
that's
was
hot.
a schlep, or was it Fresno? I think it was Bakersfield.
It was Bakersfield. I remember that
There was
old,
a great big sign
yeah, that,
over Highway
that old
99.
motel that was
Yeah.
with the arch over the highway.
Yeah. Which,
Bakersfield Inn.
so anyway, that was a traumatic time. She really was unhappy.
Wow. So you were having second thoughts?
No. I think he wanted me to shut up, go away at that point. Oh, I just really apparently don't take terrible heat well.
Yeah.
But then we had an absolutely beautiful time at this Arrowhead.
And then this
Hotel.
Arrowhead, it turned out that two of my sisters, and I guess Dave's at that time too, very good friends, two couples were at the same hotel on our, during our honeymoon.
Wow.
We managed to ignore them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was sort of embarrassing. I don't know, everybody's like, and then there was, what was the guy's name who owned the hotel?
Oh,
The-
Bernard McFadden.
Yeah, I don't know.
He was a health nut.
And one night, we after dinner, I guess everybody went down, they showed movies, and they had some movies of him racing a train. And we got in the elevator, and we were the two, young, hysterical. We couldn't stop laughing, and then all of a sudden we saw he was on the elevator with us.
We were a little embarrassed.
Oh, and you were babies. You were 20 and 21,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, not too adult. But it was the funniest thing seeing him run the train, because it was, you knew it was a
I
fake.
still remember that movie.
That's great. And so,
It was a nice hotel, by the way.
and is that still there, that hotel, do you think?
No, in fact, we just went to a lecture about Southern California, and they spoke of the Arrowhead Springs Hotel, and apparently it's gone through many,
Multiple owners.
many things since it was the Arrowhead Springs Hotel, and I think now it's a nunnery.
It was a nunnery. I think it's something else now. It's some charitable organization.
Huh.
But it was a great hotel. It had a lovely pool, I remember. And,
Gorgeous grounds.
Yeah, really pretty. And that's where we learned to eat chicken liver omelets.
Ooh.
Oh, they were
They
so
were
good.
Or was that back in New York at the
No,
Beach
no,
Region?
no, it was there. We had them practically every morning.
You're right.
And they were,
I can still taste them.
and it's like everything else in life, you never can find anything as good.
Uh-huh.
We've tried.
So your honeymoon was how long? A week?
Probably, I don't know.
I think we were a week out there at Springs Hotel, and we drove into into Los Angeles, and we stayed a couple of nights at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Yeah, which is pretty
Oh,
nice.
nice.
And then we went home.
And then you went home, and so then you went back to school eventually.
Yeah.
Or right, probably just about right after that.
Yeah, I guess that was my senior year.
And did you, while Dad was in school, were you working, or what were you doing,
Well,
Mom?
when we were married, I was going into my senior year of college.
Ah,
And then I went to work after, I graduated. And I had the wonderful job of working as a secretary, after 4 years of college, working as a secretary for, I think it was $47.50 a week, which in those days even was not a very good salary. And then I'll never forget, when I was pregnant with Debbie, and being so small, I had to go maternity clothes fairly early, I think before I was going into the 3rd month of pregnancy, because, I expanded very quickly. And so I obviously had to tell my employer, and he promptly proceeded to fire me,
oh boy.
which, of course, today is a no-no.
Right. I was going to ask you something else, and now I forgot. Were there a lot of students, a lot of college students that you knew that were married? I mean, was that a typical thing to
Well, the
get married
Menckens
before
were married,
graduation?
the Elephants were married,
Marty and Evie Hertz.
yeah.
So yes.
Yeah.
So that was typical to
Yeah.
get married at
In
that
those days,
young
you
age.
married young.
Right. And so then, was the next big event Debbie's birth, or did you do any, any traveling or anything?
Well, when I
Before that?
graduated from college, which was at the same time as our first wedding anniversary, my parents were simply wonderful to us and gave us a check to take a trip. And it's interesting looking back. The check I remember was for $500, and we had this marvelous driving trip where we went through Salt Lake and then into Yellowstone and then up to Banff and Lake Louise,
Through Glacier.
through Glacier National
Oh,
Park.
it's a long road trip.
Yeah, and we did that all for $500. Today, I think it would, get you to Sacramento?
I had a Chevrolet, a two-door Chevrolet.
Was it two-door?
Yeah. And I don't know, it was either a 45 or a 46 or a 42, I can't remember. It was a nice car though. But of course those days, cars were just bare, they had a radio and that was it.
Mhm.
We got to Yellowstone and it was oh, you heard the story.
Oh yeah, I want to hear it again.
Yeah, it was pouring rain, and we sat in the car thinking, damn, this is this gorgeous lake that we'll never see again in our lifetimes, and we haven't been back. And finally we said, oh, hell, we'll get wet, so what? So, we roared out of the car, and, we had been just sitting there with, I think, either the motor running or turned off, I forget which. And when we got back and tried to enter the car, I found the keys were still in the car.
Uh-oh.
So I had to break a window to get in. And fortunately, in those days, getting a new window was easy. But it was embarrassing and stands out in my mind also, because we love food. I can remember we stopped at one place and got the best pie I've ever
Oh,
seen.
it was in some place in Montana.
Yeah,
It was
Billings maybe?
Or Helena, maybe, I don't know, whatever, on the way to Glacier, I guess.
No, it was still in the United States. Yeah, on the way to Glacier, you're
Yeah.
right.
It was boysenberry pie, I think.
Oh, it was good.
Hmm.
Maybe from local berries.
No, I think it was the crust probably. more than anything
Oh.
else.
You guys have the most amazing memories for travels that you've done. I mean, you
Yeah,
remember
we
all.
love travel.
It's incredible. But I love travel, but I can never remember the details of where I've been. But I
I
love
don't-
hearing about your travels.
I don't remember enough, because sometimes Mom will talk about trips, and I have no recollection at all, other than the fact maybe we've been there.
So, I would ask you where you've been in the world, except it's probably makes more sense to ask where you haven't been. Is there any place that you've not traveled that you really, really wanted to?
Antarctica and New Zealand.
And I would, and I would have loved to have gone to Sicily. But,
Oh,
Yeah, we kept trying to go to Sicily. It just the trips never worked right.
but you know, that's the way it goes. We've been so fortunate. We've had so many wonderful trips.
We never had a bad one.
yeah, that's pretty lucky.
No, never had a bad trip.
There must have been a day here and there, what
No,
I called
when
a
I-
travel day from hell.
Well,
It's
when I
always
went to
something.
the hospital in Turkey, that was
Oh, that's not so
wonderful.
good, yeah.
But I was lucky. It was only overnight.
Is there one particular trip that stands out for either of you that's just,
You
Trip of a
know, it's,
lifetime?
people that keep asking that question, and it's hard. You know, the Galapagos were just amazing.
And I loved New Guinea.
Yeah.
Thought-
Africa was amazing.
Yeah, Africa was fantastic. We loved it so much we went back twice.
But I mean, every place we've been have been just amazing. It's so different from anything we know.
Well, I loved our trip to Russia when you were with us.
But I think my one regret about trips is that, you know, we watch this stupid Anthony Bourdain shows, and, you know, he eats, you know, places that are not, you know, he eats a fancy place, he eats some that, you know, are not, and gets, you know, talks about the native foods.
You took a lot of street food.
Pardon? Yeah.
A lot of street food.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right, a lot of street food. Anyway, I realized we missed a lot with ethnic food, really ethnic, true, not the kinds you get in a hotel.
so you eat in the tourist restaurants mostly?
Yeah, you know, it's like, well, I remember in Japan, we went on the back street and,
Yeah.
and ate very reasonable meals, which is why we went in the back, because they were so expensive on the main streets. But, and so, because there, you know, you order because you look at a picture and you order from the picture because you have no idea what it is you want.
I remember in Japan, one day we were in Tokyo, and it was raining and very cold, and we were in, I forget where the restaurant was, but we could not wait for a nice hot meal. So we looked at the picture and we pointed to it. Looked like a beautiful hot noodle dish. And the bottom of this came out, it was cold, but it was good.
And your traveling companions, a lot of the time you didn't go just the two of you, right?
What
You
with
traveled with
Dick and Ida
friends.
Mae Mahler
Right.
on several trips.
And, you know, like on that trip to Canada, it was with Shell and Shirley and
Stan and
Stan
Pat.
and Pat.
Mhm.
One time we went with Dick and Joyce and Graham Seal. And then we went and used, you know, and some of the later trips was less expensive and easier travel. We went, you know, with groups, particularly on the river cruises. And we
Oh, yeah.
made friends on the river cruises and stayed friendly for 3 or 4 or 5 years. We met some great ladies in Turkey that we stayed friendly with for a while, really nice people.
Is there, I'm going to change the subject, unless you want to talk more about traveling. Is there a period of your life that you feel like was your favorite, has been your favorite time of life? You know, a certain age or a certain stage, or work that you were doing, or
Well, I think the
you know,
stage,
involvement in something or another.
when we were having children, was a terribly meaningful and beautifully wonderful period of our lives. And, you know, extended over 12 years. That's the difference between you and Debbie, isn't it?
Yeah, 12 and a
Yeah.
half, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Which is a long time, so it was a very joyful period.
But,
I second the motion.
yeah, okay. Okay, I have to.
You know, I worry about you when are you packed?
It won't turn off. Turn off.